Welcome and good morning, all. My name is Santino. I'm the Education Manager for Bowman's Wildflower Preserve, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our 2024 annual meeting. This morning, we'll have several speakers on our virtual stage. But as always, with all of our programs, a quick land acknowledgement to kick us off. So, Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve encompasses part of the indigenous homelands of the Lenape people. We pay respect and honor the land's original inhabitants and acknowledge their displacement by European colonization. We are dedicated to being respectful and sustainable stewards of the preserve and to deepen our relationship with the Lenape people. So it's at this point of my introduction where I normally go into the preserve history, but I'm going to skip that because you'll be hearing about that very, very soon. And of course, we'll be about an hour-ish or less. But if you need the restrooms at any point, you know where they're located better than I do. Please feel free to eat, drink, and snack as we jump into this meeting. And because all the other housekeeping I normally take care of, we'll talk about later, I'm going to turn the floor right over to Madam President, Miss Heidi Needleman.
Thank you very much, Santino. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Heidi Needleman, and it has been my honor to serve as the chair of the Board of Trustees for 2024. And so I'm going to be co-leading this meeting today with our Executive Director, Pete. Pete, is there anything that you'd like to say as under welcome?
No, just welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be participating in this. This is my fifth annual meeting, so I am particularly honored, and I think I hope I know what I'm doing now. So, so thank you and welcome everybody.
Welcome. So with that, what you see on the slide in front of you is the agenda for the morning. So I'm going to take a few minutes to give you an update from the Board of Trustees. And then Santino will be our guest speaker talking about the history of the preserve. And then an acknowledgement of our 90th anniversary, right? And then Pete will come in and do the executive director's report with the 2024 recap, and then he will give us a look forward into the proposed 2025 annual plan and the 2025 budget. And then we will move into a formal vote by the Board of Trustees on Pete's annual plan and budget. So that is our agenda. So why don't we get started? So I would like to start the board update by introducing the elected slate of board officers for 2025. So Lisa Tremper Hanover, who is currently vice chair, will be stepping into the role of chair this for 2025. And she brings a wealth of experience with her. She was a former director and CEO of the Michener Museum. She's a long association with the American Alliance of Museums, and just a wealth of nonprofit experience. So it'll be great to have Lisa in that role. I will be stepping into the role of vice chair. As many of you know, I recently moved to California, so it's much easier for me to support the preserve in a virtual environment in a vice chair position versus a chair position, since virtually almost all of the work I do now for the preserve is virtual. And then Stephen Hall and Seth Sadisky have agreed to continue on in their roles as treasurer and as secretary. So that is our slate of board officers for 2025. And congratulations to everybody in that role, in their roles. Can we move to the next slide? So there's a little bit more on changes on the board itself, and I wanted to take a few minutes just to acknowledge introducing our new board members and also recognizing some outgoing board members. So we have 3 new board members who are joining the board into 2025. Cherie Butterfield, Deb Anjana Chatterjee, and Kat Hauben. And Cherie Butterfield, many of you know her. She's a longstanding member of the preserve, and she has carries with her a part of the development committee. She's a member of the development committee and has been a longstanding advocate for the mission and vision of the preserve. Deb Anjana is newer to the preserve, And she brings with her her passion and experience around conservation and environmental stewardship. And she has a longstanding interest in that intersection between the environment and how it influences mental and physical health. And so again, she brings a lot to the table with us to the board, and we really appreciate that. And Kat, many of you may know her. She's again a longstanding member of the Preserve, a member of both the Development and the Finance Committees, and of course has carries with her again that dedication around conservation. So those are our three new board members, and welcome. So I'm just going to do a quick clap here because we're really happy to have these three people join the board. But we also have three outgoing members, and I want to take some time to recognize their contribution. The first is Deborah Agnew, again, longstanding member of the Preserve, and for several years has served as chair of the governance committee and also been part of the executive committee. And we have, as the board, really relied on her expertise in a lot of different ways. So she will be missed on the board. However, I know that Deborah will still stay engaged. Many of you have seen her in some of our fundraisers, such as Rooted in Our Future. And it's not that Deborah's completely going away, but she will still be engaged in other ways. Judy Eby. I can't say enough about Judy Eby. Judy Eby was the chair of the Board of Trustees before me from, I think, around 2019 through 2023, and partnered with Pete to help lead the Preserve through some really difficult times of the COVID pandemic. So, her leadership was outstanding, and she was, I think, and Pete's shaking his head, an amazing partner to Pete during those difficult times. Again, Judy's not going away. But she will still see her around, but her term is now officially ending on the board. And Pam Newitt, last but definitely not least. So Pam, again, longstanding member of the Preserve, and thanks to her, we are restoring a lot of our family programming. A lot of that got shut down during the COVID pandemic because we couldn't have person programming. And so Pam has played a role in the Fourth Friday for Families and helping us rebuild that program. So again, Pam is not going to go away, but we'll still see her. But her term is ending. So I just want to stop and personally thank Deborah and Judy and Pam for everything that you've done on the board and for all the work that you've helped in supporting me on the board. Pete, is there anything that you'd like to say?
I echo all of your comments. Deborah, Judy, and Pam have been involved with this organization for a very long time, and I will not say how long, but when I came on board in June of 2020, it was arguably one of the roughest times for the organization. And the consistency, the steadiness that these three Preserve leaders demonstrated during that time was not only an crucial support to me, but also to all of us, to the organization as a whole. These people have had many roles with the organization. They have been chairs of committees, they have been board officers, and I would not have been able to do my job when I came on board here without their support. Their impact on the organization cannot be overstated. So I am thrilled for their contributions and very sorry to see them leave the board, but very thrilled that they will be continuing to be involved with the organization. So my own personal thanks from the team, the staff team at the Preserve, and we are so fortunate to have had you with us. So thank you.
So if you can move to the next slide. The last little piece that I wanted to give an update on is our board retreat. So we held a retreat, our annual retreat, at the end of September. And this year, our focus was really a midpoint review of our 5-year strategic plan, which was approved in 2022, I believe. And so we sat and looked at what is it that we've achieved to date, talked about the challenges that we have here at the current challenges that we're seeing, and then really talked about how do we focus and what do we need to focus on over the next couple of years. And what came out of that were three major next steps. I'm just going to cover the highlights because there was a lot of conversation and actions. But the first theme, I think, was we recognized we wanted to better understand the benefits and value of our museum accreditation. As you know, we are the only accredited botanical museum in the United States dedicated to native plants. But the question is what more could we do with that? Are we really maximizing the benefit of that accreditation? So a small group is going to get together and really kind of work that out, try to understand that better, come back to the board with some recommendations, and that will help position us for 2026 when we need to start reapplying for our accreditation, for reaccreditation. The second action step was really, or work stream, is really around evaluating the path for the preserve as a field research site. So many of you know Paula Walters are one of our naturalists, and she, I think, did a Thursday night lecture on phenology. And she has started and worked with a team of volunteers to start a phenology project at the preserve. So citizen science at the preserve, using the preserve as a research site. So the question comes up is what more could we do? Because the preserve has the great potential as a research site, especially with our collection of plants, our long history and data around what's at the preserve. So a small group, again, will be working through that and coming back to the board with some recommendations on what would that take for us to become a field research site for other organizations. And then the third is we spent a lot of time talking about financial sustainability. We are a nonprofit in challenging times. And so we recognize we need to continue to have a very strong focus on long-term financial sustainability. We talked a lot about that. And some of that's already been built into the plan that Pete is going to be sharing in terms of the annual plan in 2025 and the budget. So you'll see a little bit of the output of some of those discussions already. So that's kind of the highlights of our board retreat, and finishes up kind of the updates that I wanted to provide from a board perspective. So I think I will pass the virtual baton over to Pete.
Thank you, Heidi. And again, thank you for a wonderful year, as remote as it was on the other side of this continent, for leading the Board of Trustees. Thank you, Heidi. It's been a great partnership. So thank you for all of your support as well. So now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce one of our very own. Santino Lauricella has managed the education department for Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve since October of 2019. He is responsible for all facets of preserve programming, virtual and in-person, engaging our visitors to be inspired by our natural world. Originally from New York, Central New York, he received his Bachelor of Science in Wildlife Management from the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry. An avid outdoors lover since his childhood, spent just outside the Adirondack Park, he relishes all opportunities to share his very obvious passion for nature and science with others. And so with that, I will turn it over to Santino.
All right. Thank you so much, Pete. It's weird being on the opposite side of the introductions, which is fun. So just a couple of things to kick us off this evening or this morning. Note that anytime during the program where I'm quoting actual figures and numbers and straight data, know that those are my best guesses or estimates from the research, and I don't know how the historical numerical data things were collected, but everything you see here is to the best of my knowledge for accuracy. Also, other cliff note, there's a lot in 90 years, so I'm trying to do 90 years in 15 minutes, so I'm gonna roll real quick. So you'll see lots of text on the slide. Don't worry about all of that. Know that there's just a lot going on. So with that, kicking us off, Growing a Dream, 90 Years of the Preserve. There we go. All right, so first up, this is a map of Pennsylvania, obviously, but this is a geologic map. And why do I show that geologic map? Well, the geology of the preserve and the landscape around us is really why we're able to host so many different wonderful species here at the preserve. And just to give everyone a sense of place, this little box here is us in Bucks County. So many moons ago, the Pennsylvania was covered by a shallow ocean. We are also located just south of the equator, and obviously through geologic activity that our plates have shifted and the like. But during that time, many of the sediments deposited and compacted into rock, which we know as shale. Those that got compacted with all of the tropical plant matter as they decomposed became the oil shale. Many of us know that as the Marcellus shale formations. But where we're located, many of those fine sediments oxidized and reacted due to their iron and turned red. So the preserve, if you visit, know that we're filled with red shale all over, and that's how that was formed. Erosion sediments building up and oxidizing with the air. Now, fast forwarding quite a bit, more geologic activity shifted the landscape, and we had a giant magma intrusion, or a bubbling up from under the earth. This created basically like a oven cooking effect. So if you imagine this, as my friend Bill Gavoda says, like a cake, right? The top layer is going to be that shale that's oxidized. We've got the magma from below, and that magma is heating up the rock that it touches. So as that magma cooled, that became our diabase rock. That heated rock that was just above the magma became hornfelds, and the uppermost layer remained as that red shale. So we had three different types of rock. Continuing on, as the geologic activity always does, we've had some more upswelling, some rifts, and lots of erosion. And so those different layers were eroded in different ways and amounts. And it's that erosion sediment from those three different rock species that produce the diverse, rich soil that we have here at the preserve. So this is where it all started. This is Pidcock Creek back in 1933. And at the bottom here, I just have a quote from Miss Ann Hawks Hutton, who was a very notable speaker at our 35th anniversary. And I thought it was very fitting. So the world is at any given time in the hands of the enthusiastic and the dedicated. And no truer words, I think, ring here at the preserve. So I'm going to run through some prominent figures of preserve history. You might have heard these names before, and some you might not have. So first up is going to be Wilson Heinich, who was a sales manager for Bartlett Tree Experts. I'm kind of mind blown that our association with Bartlett Tree Experts has gone back this far. He was owner of Vic's Wild Gardens Nursery in Glenmore, PA, but he was hired as a consultant for Washington Crossing Historic Park as they were buying up all the land that would be the Washington Crossing Historic Park, and he was actually our first warden. The next person that you might recognize is Mary Kay Perry. She was chair of the garden section of the Federated Women's Clubs of Bucks County and also president of Countryside Gardeners. This gal, Margaret Zatzinger, was probably one of our biggest movers and shakers. She, in 1933, was chair for the Council of the Preservation of the Natural Beauty of Pennsylvania. She was a very prominent and progressive woman. She was a descendant of John Shippens Buckley, who happened to be one of the first people to buy land from William Penn. She married a prominent Philadelphian architect and politician named Clarence Clark Zatzinger. And that really helped keep her in some upper echelon ties. And she was the one person who brought Heinich's proposal for a wildflower preserve to Thomas Scott, who was president of the Park Commission back in 1933. Miss Allen H. Reed, she was head for the Treeville Horticultural Society and first chairman of activities for the Garden Club Federation of Pennsylvania. And two other founding members I could not dig up too much information on, but we've got Miss Cornelia Ross and Elmer Holmes. Another big member, big founding member here at the preserve is Dr. Edgar T. Wary. He really set the stage for our I would say basically everything that we have, the number of plants that we have, the data that we have that allows us to be a museum that really big, he kept meticulous records. So he was a chemist and mineralogist. He worked for the Natural History Museum and for the Bureau of Chemistry. He was professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He frequently gave walks, talks, and lectures here at the preserve. And he is super big into ferns, and he got that love of ferns back during his time at the Natural History Museum. Another gentleman, not one of our founding members, but very prominent in our history, is John Harshberger. He also frequently gave walks, talks, and lectures. And this guy I was kind of super impressed by. He built his own herbarium at the age of 7. He was one of the first people to recognize the threat that the chestnut blight caused. He's credited for coining the term ethnobotany back in 1895. And if you haven't heard the term ethnobotany, that is studying the relationships between humans and plants. And probably his most significant contribution was the monumental Phytographic Survey of North America back in 1911. It was a small 800-page document, but it was an early attempt to classify all the plant communities in North America. So like, no big deal, right? So jumping into how it all started. So 1917 is when the Pennsylvania General Assembly created the Washington Crossing Historic Park Commission. For the next 10 years, from 21 to 31, they spent about $25,000 to acquire all of the land. And the idea was to replant it with trees and plants that had been there during the Revolutionary War. They hired W. Wilson Heinrich to be their consultant. And in the original intent for this land was for it to become park recreation for families to camp and enjoy. But Heinrich had a dream. There's got to be some place along the Pidcock Creek that should be protected and preserved from intensive recreation. So he was trying to protect the landscape there. And over several conversations with his supervisors, the idea evolved into creating a wildflower preserve. So he happened to be walking along the mill race in 1933, I suspect about September, when he came across Miss Mary K. Perry, and she was planting narcissus bulbs along the mill race. Once he brought his proposal to her, she was very much inspired and urged him to connect with Margaret Zatzinger, who again was chair of the Council for Preservation of Beauty and Natural Beauty of Pennsylvania. Zatzinger was immediately taken by the proposal and brought it to her club in November of 1933. And he also brought that same proposal to Miss Allen Reed. This is like, what mind blows me is how quick this happened. So proposal to these gals in September, and on January 20th, Thomas Scott, president of the park, presented that letter to his commissioners. And in June, so not even a year, is when the commission accepted the offer for the Council of Preservation of the Natural Beauty of Pennsylvania to establish a wildflower preserve at the base of Bowman's Hill, 100 acres set aside specifically for that purpose. And here's a 1934 map of what our lands look like. And just to give you, this is a aerial view, just so you can see what those areas are, but the pavilion area, the entrance area here, some of our early paths, the Astor Path and our Hemlock Grove, which you can still visit today. So many hands make light work is truly, I mean, always rings true here at the preserve. Volunteers and others, we wouldn't be who we are without all of them. Dr. Wary and his team of volunteers planted hundreds of species and maintained meticulous records of where they all were. Roscoe McGill, who was park superintendent at the time, budgets were really tight and he couldn't devote a lot of funds to the preserve, but back in 1934 said that 75% of his staff time had gone towards preserve projects. And we've got to tip our hats to the Civil Works Administration, the Works Projects Administration, and the National Youth Administration for all of the labor for our early preserve projects. So the early trail systems, by 1935, 3,000 specimens had been planted here at the preserve. Again, tip of the hat to Dr. Wary and his team. And Heinrich, because he was connected with the Civil Works Administration, he was able to get us a whole bunch of workers for special projects. And those CWA workers cleared the woodlands, built gateways and trails, built early parking lot, which was kind of the lower level lot from my understanding, restored the mill race and did a whole bunch more. And then as time progressed, the WPA workers built on the success. By 1940, in total, they completed about 13 trails and had 450-ish species planted here at the preserve. And if you're walking along the trails and you see those weird stone markers, those were WPA planted as, you know, kind of the early trail marking systems. So again, here's just an overlay of that aerial and the old map with those things, you know, highlighted pavilion, the entrance area here. But one thing I want to draw your attention to is the picking fields. So way back before we were into preservation, one early idea was to have picking fields for visitors to come, enjoy the plants, and leave much of the preserve land untouched. But very quickly, they found out how costly, both resource-wise and time-wise, it was to maintain. And so a new vision was formed for that area. And for those who visit, you might recognize that as Penn's Woods. So from fields to forest. So as popular as those picking fields were, they were filled with challenges. So in 1941, they decided to plan a forest, a memorial forest restoration project. And Margaret Zatzinger was chair of the committee. She led that project, and it would include more than 150 species of trees native to Pennsylvania, and it was officially established in 1944. So 10 years from our founding is when Penn's Woods officially was established. In addition, at that same time, 2 new comfort stations were built at the lower lot, and those were originally done with lumber from the preserve. And again, here's a aerial map, and this one has a slightly more up-to-date map of the preserve with that aerial overlay. But there's the comfort stations down there. You can see we no longer have our pickings fields. We've got Penn's Woods and some of our early trail systems named for some of those prominent figures, including Harshberger, Wary, and Perry. Another one of the most lasting WPA projects was the Chestnut Log Guard Cabin. It was built in the summer of 1935 and was the first projects to be completed. And you can see here on this old map, it was the guard's house. From my understanding, there was an old guard shack, and the cabin replaced that and also served as residence for the warden, who, if you remember, was Heinisch. As we fast forward from the 1940s and the 50s, you know, the preserve got ever more popular. More and more people were coming to the preserve, gained great notoriety. We were covered in various media outlets, but we had lectures. We hired our first botanist. We established a bird banding program in the 1950s. This guy here, Paul Fluck, Dr. Paul Fluck, the gentleman holding the duck, led that. And we had down in the lower corner, you'll see Pauline Buckingham, who was hired as our first naturalist. But all of this amazing growth was not without its challenges. We all go through growing pains. One of the first I think is cool is that we had a Cambridge elm, which that is a descendant of the tree that apparently Washington rallied his troops under at the preserve, and it passed away in 1939. Now, during the 30s to 40s, the Washington Crossing Historic Park Commission went through several different administrations, each with their own ideas about what the relationship of the preserve and the park were. And as time changed, there was a lot of miscommunications and just no one really understood that relationship well. And all of this got turned to a head when in 1946, Dr. Wary was threatened to be arrested for stealing plants by park police, which, if you can imagine, the guy who's basically in charge of knowing everything about all of our plants, they're going to threaten him. So he got very upset with that for this public accosting, and he removed himself for quite some time from preserve activities. But this really led to all of the folks around the preserve, outside of being absolutely just distraught, we really needed to find our place in Pennsylvania legislation. So after very heavy lobbying and championing, discussions beginning in 1947, over the next 2 years, In 1949, we finally got official status through legislation in the spring of 1949. So we are recognized as a true entity back in 1949. And that's Governor James Duff. Once we got official designation in the legislation, that opened us up to lots of state help. So the Department of Federal Works designed and built Founder's Pond in the 50s. They also helped with routine maintenance, creating trail signage, clearing the trails, and they are also the folks that helped us kind of build up Penn's Woods to what it is today, too. And in the 1950s alone, over 300 new species of plants were added to the preserve. One of the great ways they did this was via a mini habitats for specimens. And the idea was a brainchild of Dr. Wary, but in 1963, they buried bathtubs and amended those soils in those locations as a tribute to him and to help us gain some more species. We don't do that now. We don't bury bathtubs. And several new trails were added in addition to the Bucks County Trail, as is at the bridge, and Audubon Trail. And that trail was designed by Dr. Fluck himself, which I thought was really cool. Continuing on, as I said, visitation truly boomed and the preserve continued to be covered by several media outlets. This is just an excerpt from the Washington Crossing Park Commission's biennial report, and you're free to view that online. But I thought it was crazy. 1952, they quote us as having 15,000 visitors. By 1956, 75,000 people had come to the preserve, and 1960, 150,000 people. And as you can imagine, this crazy amount of visitation put quite a strain on both the preserve, its resources, as we were still only volunteer run in 1949. And this is just a quick zoom in of that. You can see celebrating our 25th anniversary down here. And this is approximately 150,000 people visit the preserve with 200 special guided tours. I thought this was crazy that it was quoted there. With all of the visitation, it was clear that we needed a real home for people to come see. Our headquarters had been the Thompson Neely House from 1930s until now. So discussions began in the 1960s. In 1961, it was officially made a capital project for the Department of Federal Works. And in 1964, our visitor center was finished at the cost of $75,000, which today is $750,000. And on May 13th, 1965, we had our official dedication ceremony. But shortly after that, renovations were being considered only 3 years later to make space for office, as well as to make space for a absolutely magical donation of Bucks County natural nests and bird displays, 250 different bird species. And this was done by Charles Platt, who gave us these species, which many of our some of our old-time visitors might remember these bird displays, and they were in honor of his mother, who was an early and pioneering member of the preserve, and that official dedication was in 1973. And she was a very prominent artist. You can see a picture of one of her art species, and we have a book here at the preserve if folks want to check it out that has some of her art in that as well. Continuing on with more renovations and the like, in 1977, we became our own official entity with Bowman Wildflower Preserve Association, Inc. William Olson was hired as our first full-time educator, so it took till 1981 for that to happen. More renovation work happened on both interior and exterior of the building, so we got our brand new roof, brand new in 1986. 1987 is when we got approval for the building of a deer fence, that 2-mile exclusion fence to help protect our plants, and that wasn't completed until 92. And of course, we mentioned earlier on that accreditation, the preserve truly as a museum, which was, I don't think would have been possible without the work of Dr. Wary and all those volunteers who helped keep those meticulous notes. But that accreditation was led by none other than Janet Urban, who was the first trained manager here by PHMC. Now, she was not our executive director. We got our first executive director shortly after that. His name was Paul Teese. But at this time, we are one of 673 museums nationwide, one of 8 botanical gardens, and as still the only wildflower preserve dedicated to native plants. Still keep going on, fast forward. We became a nonprofit organization back in 97. We've had some heavy storms that produced heavy floods. Miles Arnott in 2000 took leadership from Paul Teese. And at that same year, we got our native plant idea garden, which are the lovely visitor center gardens you see as soon as you enter the preserve. And it was also at that time that Penn's Woods, which was a memorial forest, and they had kept continuing to mow and clear that land, so you could walk right up to the trees. It was decided that the mowing projects would be eliminated, and it really kind of showcased what a normal Pennsylvania forest with understory would look like. 2012 is when Hurricane Sandy happened. 2013 is when we got our new pond, which we still call the new pond today. So I laughed 10 years of being the new pond, but it's not the founder's pond. 2015, we got a renovation for our nursery and a new greenhouse. In 2018, we got our reaccreditation from the American Alliance of Museums, as well as the Aquatong Meadow areas, which greet you as soon as you get to the preserve. That meadow project commences. So it's in its what, 7th year now, which is pretty great. And that brings us to today. And this is the glorious team of individuals that I am proud to stand beside and work with each and every day. These fine and glorious folks really carry on the legacy of all those people that came before us, and we try our best to continue to build on the progress from them. And here's just a quick slide of our current stats, which is available, I think, on our website for folks to read a little bit further. And I want to give my hat, take my hat off and say thank you to all of the fine folks who I drew from and built upon for this program. One of the best is Peter Osborne, who's the gentleman up top here. He put out this beautiful book, No Spot in This Far Land is More Immortalized. I call it the Brown Bible. It literally covers everything preserve history, super detailed with references. In addition, I pulled some stuff from Miss Edith Taylor, who was associated with the preserve for quite some time. She did, for our 60th anniversary, put a history of the preserve from 1934 to 1994, and a lovely compilation. And of course, I want to give a shout out to all of the wonderful naturalists who've taught me from my humble beginnings here at the preserve. I joke, when I was hired, they asked me, what do you know about native plants? And I said, nothing, but I can learn. And these fine folks have done a great number. Mr. Bill Gabota and Mary Nogami are who you see highlighted here. They are my geology and history buffs and are happy to answer questions. And some of you might have had a chance to take a history tour with them this past year. They were quite a hit. So thank you to them. And with that, I want to leave you guys with just one small quote from our previous executive director, Miles, that I think, I opened with a quote. This is another one that really encompasses the feelings here at the preserve. There's a sense of wholesomeness that emanates from this place. Countless others have expressed the same feeling upon visiting here for the first time and cite it as a reason that they return again and again. But there's something more, something deeper, some thread of goodness that's attracted good people and woven itself through the history of the preserve to the benefit of this special place. So with that, I want to say thank you all, and I turn the floor back over to, I believe, Pete.
Excellent, Santino. That was fantastic. And for those of you who have registered for this program today, you will absolutely receive a copy of this presentation, which we will be expanding into a full-length program through one of our other series. But when I asked Santino to put this together for us, and I was looking at the draft presentation, and I saw it started in the Cenozoic era, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long presentation. But hat off to you, Santino, for making this overview fast and furious and so interesting. I applaud you. So thank you so much for that great overview of where we've come from and where we are today, Santino. Excellent job. All right. Well, let me share my screen, and we'll continue on with today's annual meeting. Okay, let me get the slideshow going here. Oops. Nope. There we go. Give a second to pull that up. All right. So let me go back here. All right. So I'm not sure how I'm going to be successful following Santino, amazing Santino's presentation, but I will do my very best here today. So it is, again, my honor to be in front of all of you for our 2024 annual meeting. This was a year of many, many challenges for the preserve and its community, but it was also a year of great success. So I am thrilled to together have a look at 2024 as the advancement of the preserve's mission is only made possible through your generosity and your support. And we are truly, truly grateful. Now, as many of you know who have attended prior annual meetings, I like to give each year a tagline. This year's tagline is Strength Through Preparedness, as the preserve invested significant time and resources in assessing its operations, its planning, its relationship to the world and community around us, and navigating the best path forward. Through that look both inward and outward, the preserve is increasing its efficiencies and strengthening the foundation from which we deliver our native plant-focused mission. First and foremost, in 2024, we invested deeply in our foundational partnership with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources through the execution of a new 35-year lease. This negotiation took 8 years of blood, sweat, and tears, led by a passionate, expert team of preserve leaders. With our formal agreement with DCNR now in hand, the preserve has already enjoyed significant support, both logistical and financial, in infrastructure and grounds repairs and maintenance. We are so proud to finally now be a part of the DCNR family. And just like family, we threw a reunion party in the form of a joint press event on May the 15th this year to announce the fantastic news to our community. The event was attended by Preserve and DCNR leadership, including DCNR Secretary Cindy Adams-Dunn, as well as our local legislators, State Senator Steve Santarciero, say that 10 times fast, State Senator Steve Santarciero, and State Representative Tim Brennan. Next, in 2024, we invested more in our amazing volunteer corps by providing more engagement and educational opportunities in fun and meaningful ways, including a native plant scavenger hunt in the remarkable gardens of longtime volunteer Dave Horn, an appreciation event with a barbecue luncheon and native plant presentation from our naturalists this past July, several educational off-site field trips throughout the month of October, and all made possible with the hiring of Breanne Scott, our new volunteer and visitor services coordinator this past April. And Breanne, if you are watching, I apologize for the image I'm using here, but I could not resist. This is from our Preserve at Play this past year. And so thank you for being a part and a new member of our team. Next, the preserve also expanded its fundraising opportunities, building a more robust calendar of revenue-generating events, including a brand new Happy Trails spring fundraiser in late April during the peak bloom of our spring ephemerals. It was a lovely evening of naturalist-guided trail walks with champagne, what can get better than that, followed by a seated dinner by Max Hansen Catering. Through that event, we raised over $37,000. In addition, we expanded our Rooted in Our Future event beyond just an invitation-only experience. We invited our entire Preserve family to celebrate and raise crucial unrestricted funds with us, and they came. It was a raucous evening that, for the first time during my tenure at the Preserve, featured a live auction item complete with bidding war, dancing, and a surprise announcement from State Senator Santarciero of a $50,000 grant that will support our community connectivity project, addressing trail safety and educational enhancements to the Perry Trail, Marsh Marigold Trail, and the Cabin Stairs. Including that grant, that event raised over $215,000. As an increased investment in our members, we were finally able to realize our vision of a robust Music in the Meadow event in late October. We enjoyed the very talented class act, a band comprised of area high school educators, for a fun-filled evening of great dancing tunes, beer and wine, and delicious bites from Spuddy Buddy Food Truck. And finally, we welcomed approximately 500 attendees to our third annual Preserve at Play Family and Children event this past June, including a nominally priced ticket of $10 per family that supported revenue earnings. This very special, fun, and educational experience has now become a keystone event in the Preserve's calendar. Now, all of these successes are, of course, impressive on their own, but are especially impressive given the continued challenges that the economic landscape provides. So remember that movie, The Matrix? Well, in 2024, it felt a lot like that dodging bullets scene, you know, when the main character, Neo, was confronting his enemies on the skyscraper rooftop, and he's like dodging all those, like hundreds of bullets coming at him. That's what this year kind of felt like. So just in that scene, the Preserve was also dodging the bullets of a continued strong labor market, industry-wide trends that are leading to post-pandemic decreased visitation, decreased enrollment in membership, and overall decreases now in consumer spending. In addition to all of that, the country is experiencing very unique trends in philanthropic giving, with charitable donations dropping in 2022 for only the fourth time in the last 40 years. Usually, charitable giving in the United States increases year after year. In 2022, it actually declined. And as we all know so well, all nonprofits were affected by the presidential election as donors reallocated their giving towards their political candidates. And this election cycle was record-breaking, with the amount of political donations thrown into national and local races. So currently, philanthropic giving in the United States is at its lowest level in almost 30 years. According to the Associated Press, philanthropic giving as a percent of personal disposable income is at its second lowest point since 1982. And to add insult to injury, according to Axios, environmental causes were among those hit the hardest, a drop of nearly 9% since 1995. Only educational institutions fared worse, with a nearly 11% decline in giving. International crises also play a large role in national giving trends, with significant conflicts in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Our donor community is being pulled in so many different directions. And finally, American households have been not only trying to deal with the serious post-pandemic inflation that erodes what their dollar can buy, but their trust in institutions is now at a record low in this highly polarized political climate. The Preserve and all nonprofits are facing an uphill climb with these philanthropic giving trends. So, that was a lot, I know. But let's now look ahead to 2025 and what the Preserve will be delivering to our community. So let's look at the annual plan together as a preview for what you can expect at the Preserve next year. First, with collections and curation, we'll continue to support the development of our position statement on climate change. We'll review and update our collections management plan, continue to support trail stewardship through our amazing volunteer corps. We'll continue to invest in our in-house reserve of museum collection specimens for sustainable propagation, and we'll continue to maintain our current inventory and collections support practices. In development and fundraising, we intend to finalize the departmental key performance indicators so we can better measure our success. We would like to implement recurring gift capability. We will be prioritizing our major gift portfolio and creating a new bequest and planned giving program. We also would like to increase promotion and marketing for our memorial gift opportunities. And we'll be paying special attention to our signature fundraisers. We will be expanding promotion for Rooted in Our Future and securing additional sponsorships for that event. We also hope to expand our Happy Trails spring fundraiser experience to 40 attendees. We'll also be investing more in sponsorships through the Land Ethics Symposium, Preserve at Play, and Music in the Meadow. We'll be cultivating our neighbors to the preserve, as well as securing hopefully 1 to 2 new grants from our amazing foundation partners. In education and interpretation, we will continue to address our desperate need for naturalists as native garden guides, walk leaders, and program hosts. And you're hearing it here, perhaps for the first time, we will be hosting Land Ethics Symposium in person, finally, in summer of 2025, hopefully with around 180 attendees. So look for that announcement as we go further into the year. It will be in August, most likely, but it will be held at Delaware Valley University. We also hope to grow our very popular YouTube channel to about 2,500 subscribers, raise our guided walk participation by 5%, expand Preserve at Play for 750 attendees, develop additional workshop-style programs, as well as an audio tour program. For facilities and grounds, we will continue to implement our long-range planning meetings at least twice per year. We'll continue planning for our addition of key visitor service amenities. We'll expand and update our tracking documents, including our priority improvements, deferred maintenance, and fixed asset needs. We'll continue our planning for trail maintenance and development and align our repair needs with our fundraising department's priority funding projects. In marketing and communications, we will continue to explore the production of a new website with our website working group through sourcing a potential vendor partner and gathering feedback for what we would like to have in a new website. We'll continue to be producing our 8-page printed newsletter for the end of the year. We'll utilize our social media calendar, but hope to increase the variety of mission-related postings on our social media channels. We will also be completing a promo video this year, which we hope to leverage with our community, and we'll continue to explore the conversion from print collateral into digital advertising. Next in the native plant nursery, and again, Maggie Strucker, if you're watching, I just could not resist using this photo. We hope to increase volunteer engagement for general nursery support and in propagation, which in propagation we'll be expanding the season for. We also hope to increase in-house propagation and expand the Piece of the Preserve program. We'll also be completing our nursery expansion project. And for those who don't know what that is, we'll be kicking back the back fence to the preserve so we can install some raised beds for grow out areas. And our large greenhouse, we are looking to expand the use of to a year-round program. In visitor services, we will continue to assess our own inventory pricing to better accommodate inflation. We will ensure sufficient stocking for our very busy spring season, a better partnership with our marketing and communications actions for increased promotion. And then you can expect to see the addition of a clearance section, new items and garden wares to our inventory offerings, and as well as a revamped shop layout and checkout experience. For volunteers, we hope to recruit 45 amazing new volunteers for our core, implement a new recruitment plan, including the addition of a little postcard to all of the preserves tabling events in our community. And we'll continue our volunteer appreciation event in March, expanding our training opportunities. We'll invest again in another scavenger hunt and luncheon, and additional field trips and learning opportunities throughout the year. So with all of that in the annual plan, let's look ahead now to the 2025 budget. With all of the economic and philanthropic giving trends that I've reviewed, it's really important that we get this budget right. So first, I'd like to review the key tenets or the themes of the 2025 budget. The 2025 budget accommodates the industry-wide post-pandemic downward trend in visitorship that has affected the preserve's earned revenue streams like admissions, gift shop sales, and memberships. So therefore, the 2025 forecast for those revenue streams is lower than in years past. Additionally, consumer spending for goods, which had remained strong during the pandemic, is now declining. We continue to invest more in our members and our volunteers over the past 3 years. The Preserve will continue to invest more in membership promotion and upselling, as well as the expansion of our member appreciation event, Music in the Meadow. In addition, we've enjoyed accelerated success with our volunteer recruitment, nearly 40 in 2024 alone, but also retention and recognition following the introduction of Brianne Scott to the team in April. Now, for the first time in my tenure, we were finally able to arrange a more robust calendar of educational and social experiences like field trips this year. Our volunteers can look forward to more of the same in 2025. The Preserve is also making an increased investment in fundraising. Given the philanthropic and economic trends I reviewed earlier, the key to the Preserve's bright future is the development of its fundraising program, from building a more formalized memorial gift program to developing a more robust major donor community. We'll be pursuing partnerships with our corporate partners and introducing the Preserve and the amazing evolution it's undergone in the last 4 years to our Bucks County neighbors and beyond. Effective outreach has never been more important for the Preserve. So the overall goal of the 2025 budget is to maximize the charitable revenue streams by reassigning resources to the Preserve's fundraising arm, as well as maximizing efficiencies within the Preserve's operations to accommodate these continuing post-pandemic economic impacts. So with all of that, I am delighted to present to the Board of Trustees a balanced 2025 budget of $1,212,000. So thank you all for being here today and for your generous support. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to Heidi, who will manage the vote from the Board of Trustees on the annual plan and the 2025 budget.
So thank you. And thank you for that presentation. And again, thank you, Santino, for such a wonderful talk about the history of the Preserve. I learned a lot, and I'm always fascinated by our history. So the way we're going to work with this for Board of Trustees members who are on is I'm going to call your name alphabetically, and then you'll cast 2 votes. A vote of yes or no to the 2025 annual plan and a vote yes or no to the 2025 budget. And you'll do that by typing it into the webinar. So that is how it will get recorded.
Into the chat.
Into the chat of the webinar. So,
yes,
and if you want to post it to everyone so we can all see your vote, that would be ideal. So I'm going to start.
And Heidi, may I quickly clarify? When you call the name, should they be giving 2 votes at that time?
2 votes.
Okay, so 2 votes when your name is called.
So once your name is called, give 2 votes. Okay. And so Deborah Agnew, I'm doing this in alphabetical order, everyone. I thought that would be the easiest way to go. So Deborah Agnew, can you put into the chat your vote
for
the annual plan and the budget?
Yes to both.
Okay, yes to both. Excellent. All right, next person is Christy Lane Anderson.
Yes and yes.
Excellent. Jenny Rose Carey.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Joel Colomar.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Deb Anjana Chatterjee. Okay.
Yes and yes.
Stephen Hall.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Lisa Hanover. Okay.
Yes for both.
Kat Hauben,
Yes and yes.
Juanita Hummel,
Yes and yes.
Baldev, Lamba, I'm not sure if he was able to attend. Baldev,
He
are you
was on
there?
earlier, yes.
He was on earlier. Baldev?
Baldev, if you can hear us, your vote is up. Why don't we
Okay.
circle back to
Well, I'll
Baldev?
circle back to him. Gail Lindenberg.
Yes and yes. And
Okay.
Baldev has
And
just
there's
chimed
Baldev.
in.
Okay, there's a little bit of a
Yep.
delay. Technology is wonderful when it works.
Yes and yes for Baldev.
Amy Mobby.
Yes and
Okay.
yes.
Mariah Morris.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Heidi Needleman. All right. I guess that means I should do this, shouldn't I? There we are. Yes
Yes
and
and yes.
Okay. Pam Newitt.
Yes and yes.
Okay. Seth Sadisky. I know he's busy recording too, so.
He
Seth.
is. He is.
All right, I'll circle back for that. Denise
Very good.
Pancari.
Denise Pancari. Denise, you on? Yes and yes for Denise.
Okay. Deb Berry.
Yes and yes.
Okay. And I'll circle back one more time for Seth.
Seth, are you able to submit your vote?
I don't see his name on the attendees list, so he might
I
not be
think
here right now.
he might
He may
have
have
had some
gotten
technical
booted.
issues. Okay.
Okay, so we can collect that. Okay.
Okay. So I think it is fair to say, Pete, that your 2025 annual plan and 2025 budget has been approved by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations, everybody. We look forward to a very bright 2025 ahead. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for attending our annual meeting. I propose that we, it is time to close and head off to the rest of our Saturday mornings.
We need to do a vote to formally end the
We need
meeting
to
as
do
per
that
usual,
formal
Heidi.
vote.
So,
Okay,
yep.
so do we have to do, then is there
You'll need a motion. Yep.
do we have a motion to, okay?
Stephen has.
Stephen, there's a motion to do it. Is there a second?
Lisa has seconded.
And Lisa has seconded, okay, to adjourn. And do we need to do a formal vote or can we just do this?
We can assume a yes unless anyone would like to
All
type
right,
into the chat.
that's a good way to
Nay
say.
or
Is
or
does
yeah.
anybody want to not want to continue this meeting?
We'll give it a second.
I'm gonna hold you
anyone
here
to type in
forever.
nay or
Hold us,
abstain.
okay, we're getting votes for adjourning coming in.
All right, safe to say
It's
that vote has passed.
The vote is passed. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Take care.
Thank you,
All right.
Santino. Thank you, Heidi. Take
All
care,
right,
everyone.
bye-bye.
Thank you all.